Thank you, Dave. We're set to go. We are. We got a thumbs up. Here we go. Going to go ahead and call the City of Two Rivers City Council meeting for Monday, April 19th, 2021. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please. Jamie. Here.
Mark Bittner.
Here.
John Cassavant.
Here.
Kay Coach. Here. Darla Leclerc. Here. Bill Leclerc.
Here.
Jay Remiker.
Here.
Bonnie Shimulunas.
Here.
And Adam Wohuski.
Adam
here.
called, sent us a note. He'll be in a little late.
Okay.
He will be tonight, but he'll be coming in a little late. So he's not participating remotely. We don't have anybody participating remotely tonight. Moving on to number 5, there is no public hearing, but input from the public is the next thing up. And there is a phone number I want to make sure we share with you guys. It was not posted on the agenda. We apologize. The phone number to call in after we go through the people in the audience first will be 920-793-5534, 920-793-5534. Don't call yet. We'll look for input from the public, first of all, for anyone who's in the audience. If you want to address the council with anything that's on the agenda or anything you'd like to put on a future agenda, the podium to my right, your left, please step up. There is a microphone. State your name and your address, and we'll gladly hear what's on your mind. So you can come up now if you're willing to do that. Okay, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and go to the phones. Jamie, if you're ready. The number again out there in Two Rivers Land is 920-793-5534. We'll give you a few minutes to dial in. And again, please state your name and your address. A few more minutes or a few more seconds. Okay, we'll move on to number 7, council communications. Guys, if you could share any letters and other communication you might have got from citizens. If you want to share that, please feel free to do that. Anyone? Quiet week out there. Everybody's ready for spring. Okay, how about council reports from boards, commissions, or committees you'd like to share?
Mr. President, I will mention that there was a joint meeting with the Two Rivers Room Tax Committee and the Manitowoc Room Tax Committee to review the Visitor Center's convention's upcoming contract. The contract states that Manitowoc needs to notify us by the 1st of June if they do not intend to re-sign the contract. The contract runs between the two cities, continues through the end of December of this year. And we're talking about some details about some major changes in the contract. Hopefully there's an upcoming meeting shortly in the next week or so that we can review those issues. But at this point, there are some major points that may separate us from being able to continue together. Two Rivers wants to continue, but we want to continue on a reasonable format. So,
thank you, Mark. And we'll update you as soon as that meeting's conducted. That's here on May 3rd, I believe, Craig? Right. So the mayor of Manitowoc will join us here before our council meeting, and we'll have a conversation about that, and then be able to update you guys on that following that meeting. So stay tuned. Any other updates from boards or committees? I've got one I'll update you on. The Branding and Marketing Committee met last week. We did confirm the budget that was approved by the Room and Tax Committee as well to make sure that we've got the minimum amount of support that is budgeted for the events coming up. We're excited about all the events that are going on in Two Rivers, and we'll continue to support updating the Explore Two Rivers and all the other activities that are in the queue. So please, if you're looking for things to do this summer and want to plan your calendar accordingly, go to exploretworivers.com. Plenty of great things coming up, plenty of great opportunities for you to get involved as well. So that's the update from the Branding and Marketing Committee. Greg, if we're ready to move on, if no one else has anything else they want to share. Before we move on, can I just mention one thing? Tonight is the last night of this council as it's made up right now. We'll have, besides Adam, who's usually here, he's part of the existing council. We'll have 2 new council members join us starting tomorrow. I believe they'll be sworn in. So you'll see some different faces here. But I want to publicly thank K-Coach and John Cassavan, who stepped in when needed for different reasons. But they came back to join us on council and some spent a year, some spent maybe half a year. But they gave of their time and their energy to make sure they're doing the right thing for the community. So formally, I'd like to thank them. If we can give them a round of applause. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Greg, for letting me do that. Let's move on to your report.
Absolutely. First up under invited guests tonight, we'd like to acknowledge 2 of our employees, and I'll invite their supervisors up to introduce them, make any introductory comments. Brian Delman, our electric utility director, will be introducing not a new face, but someone who recently now has joined the ranks of journeyman linemen. This was part of our staffing succession plan at the electric utility when Joe Kaiser came on a couple years back and has now attained journeyman status. I would mention, too, it wasn't listed on my manager's report, but April 18, yesterday, was Line Worker Appreciation Day nationwide, and we do salute our line workers that keep the lights lit here in Two Rivers. So over to these gentlemen.
Thank you, Greg. So tonight I'd like to introduce Joe Kaiser, an employee who's been actually working for the city for now almost 3 years. Joe started out actually as a student intern while he was at NWTC. He was officially hired May 14th in 2018 after he graduated, and as a third-class lineman. Joe is a March 2018 graduate of NWTC from the Electrical Power Distribution Program. While he has been working for the city, he actually continued his education also at NWTC. It was a 12-week program to complete his apprenticeship. Joe has been a great asset to our department, so I'd like to ask you to please join me in congratulating Joe on all of his hard work, and he is now our newest journeyman lineman.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Brian. Next up, Tammy Destin, our Senior Center Director.
One more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hurried up there. We have a new employee at wastewater, Eli Bolt, and Dave Casebeer, if you would like to come up and take care of this introduction of our new wastewater mechanic. Sorry, I almost cut you off there.
All right. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Eli. Eli started late February at the wastewater as a replacement for Phil Dassey as our mechanic. He'll be serving as an operator and mainly a mechanic, but filling in on that operator position also. He brings a great skill set. To have a young guy come into the field is kind of rare nowadays. It positions us really good going forward. With the electrical knowledge, everything's changing as far as automation in the wastewater field, and I believe Eli is going to fit in very well with that for us here in Two Rivers.
Welcome, sir.
I should mention, too, at our department head staff meeting last week, we had representatives from both the Two Rivers School District and CISA 6, which provides the youth apprenticeship program activities in Manitowoc County. And that was an opportunity to discuss with those folks internships involving high school level interns. But what we really emphasized was there are a number of very rewarding fields available in city government. Yes, we're fire, we're police, we're public works. We're also departments like water, electric, wastewater treatment that might not always jump to people's minds when they think of career opportunities in local government, but they're really science, technology, and engineering careers, those STEM careers, in providing some very vital services to our communities. So we hope to see more young people coming up through the ranks and helping us as we have succession within those various departments. So thank you for that. Next up, I will turn the mic over to Tammy Destin, our Senior Center Director, to present resolution of commendation for the Senior Center Volunteer of the Year, John Stick, and the Senior Center Volunteer, 19, Senior Center Volunteer of the Year, John Stick. We kind of skipped things due to COVID last year about this time. And also to recognize the 2020 Senior Center Volunteer of the Year, Tara Holinski, and to declare the week of April 18th to 24th as Volunteer Week. I hope I didn't take all your words there, Tammy, but up to the podium if you would. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. So I have my notes, they're a little large, and then I've got my reader, so we'll get through this. All right. Resolution accommodation. Whereas the City of Two Rivers has richly benefited from the dedication of volunteers in service to city committees, boards, community events, recreational programs, school system, and the senior center. And whereas volunteers of today contribute to the well-being of fellow residents, visitors, and the health and happiness of our citizens by constantly giving of their time and energy without the need of recognition, compensation, or personal gain, accepting an ever-increasing and important role as our community strives to meet the needs of a changing demographic. Whereas volunteers are visible throughout the community, donating their time, talents, and efforts by cleaning trails, parks, staffing museums, food pantries, visitor centers, special events, and the senior center, and transporting senior citizens and delivering meals to homebound residents to meet their daily needs. Whereas John Stick, our 2019 Volunteer of the Year, has made a significant contribution to a total of 25,479 hours, valued at $184,723 at minimum wage rates, served by 298 different people during the year. Whereas Tara Holinski, our 2020 Volunteer of the Year, has made a significant contribution to the total of 8,795 hours, valued at $63,764 at minimum wage rates, served by 263 different people during the year. And whereas the Rotary Club of Two Rivers and the Two Rivers Senior Center will co-host the 66th and 67th Volunteer Appreciation Carryout Luncheon at the Senior Center Thursday, April 22nd. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Two Rivers hereby designates the week of April 18th through April 24th, 2021 to be designated as Volunteer Week in the City of Two Rivers. Further, we encourage all citizens to be involved and volunteer in our community. Further, we recognize John Stick as the 2019 Volunteer of the Year and Tara Holinski as the 2020 Senior Center Volunteer of the Year, and the many volunteers of the Two Rivers community for all the dedicated work they provide to the city. So,
I'm looking for a motion. We've already read it. To adopt that resolution. Thank you, Tammy, for reading that for us. I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution.
Thank you, Jay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Bonnie raised her hand. She beat you to it. Thank you, Bonnie. I got a second. Any discussion regarding this, as we heard so eloquently, all the need for volunteers and the two individuals being recognized? Any other discussion? Because this is a resolution, Jamie, I'm looking for you to do a roll call vote, please.
Hey, Coach. Aye. Darla LeClaire. Aye. Bill LeClaire.
Aye.
Jay Remiker.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulunis. Aye. Kurt Andrews.
Aye.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
John Cassavant.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And now let's give her a hand. Congratulations.
May I give you a little background on both of them?
You sure can.
So last year, everyone had to make a few changes due to the pandemic, and one of the changes was the annual Senior Center Appreciation Dinner. And we didn't want to let this year go by without showing our appreciation. We've held carry-out or drive-up fundraisers almost every month since May last year, so we decided to do the best to transform our volunteer dinner and do our carry-out. So we're recognizing both our volunteers from 19 and 2020. So first, I'd like to share a little bit about our 2019 Volunteer of the Year, John Stick. John's not able to join us in person, but he is watching online at home. John became a member and a volunteer of the True River Senior Center in early 2016 when he retired from the workforce, and he became a volunteer trust car driver. He helps get our seniors to appointments and go shopping, and he does a little errands for us. He runs to the grocery store for the kitchen and delivers posters. In 2019, he volunteered 453 hours of his time driving the car. This is very rewarding to John, and he said he is able to meet new people in town, share their stories about their lives and events that have occurred. Seeing how much passengers appreciate the help the Trust Car and other senior center programs help makes John enjoy what he does and wants to continue volunteering. In his free time, John is an avid Wisconsin sports fan, Packers, Brewers, Badgers, and the Bucks. He would like to say thank you to the Senior Center for this honor. He will always appreciate it, and the Senior Center appreciates everything that John has done and continues to do. And we would like to congratulate John, our 2019 Volunteer of the Year. So as I said, John is watching.
We'll give John a hand.
So now I'm delighted to introduce Tara Holinski, 2020 Volunteer of the Year. Due to an unexpected injury, Tara was unable to work and was fortunate enough to run into Michelle Michaels, our Senior Center Program Coordinator, at a friend's house. Michelle recruited Tara to volunteer as a receptionist twice a week at the Senior Center back in January 2019. She quickly became a regular. Everyone looked forward to seeing Tara when they would call or visit. Tara was always there to lend a hand whenever needed, and last year, our needs increased tremendously because, as you know, we had to limit things due to the pandemic. Tara helped with data entry, mailings, card creation, phone calls, fundraisers, delivering meals, and just about everything in between. She came in to volunteer 93 times last year, which amounted to 329 hours and a quarter. This past year, she also brought about wonderful changes. She's recently engaged to a wonderful person, Norb, and she enjoys spoiling her very first puppy, Chopper. Tara says she appreciated the encouragement and advice she received and continues to receive from members and fellow volunteers, and she's proud to be part of the True River Senior Center. The members and staff have been an asset to her just as much as she has been to us. She says it's a positive and upbeat place to be. Not only did volunteering help her get through the time she was off of work, she also gained invaluable skills and contacts, which helped her gain employment as a full-time office assistant. She knows this past year has been especially difficult and happy that she could help in any way possible at the Senior Center. And she looks forward to continue to be a part of the future. Please join me in congratulating Tara.
Congratulations.
We love her.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. Appreciate everything you do as well as the Senior Center for our community. Greg, we've got a special guest coming in on Zoom, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So I'm looking for a request and a motion to shift two resolutions that are in your packet up on the agenda to right now, which is Resolution G, which is resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $1,915,000 in general obligation promissory note funding for the 2021 capital projects. And I'm looking for Resolution H, which is authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale to not to exceed $800,000 for taxable general obligation refunding bonds. We have a gentleman from Baird. The package is in front of you. Justin Fisher will walk us through. Greg, if you want to go ahead and introduce him. First of all, I'm looking for a motion to shift those resolutions forward on the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, John. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Because we're doing this shift, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Justin I'll let Greg introduce you, and you take us away.
Justin will be joining us shortly. I would just mention this is our annual borrowing for city capital projects. Also, the $800,000 in borrowing is a refinancing of existing city debt. That was a 2019 borrowing to assist the Two Rivers Hotel, the Cobblestone Hotel project. That's being repaid through the added taxes on that property collected through tax incremental district number 12. We anticipate the ability to realize interest savings on that. Mr. Fisher made his presentation to the Finance Committee on April 7. They recommend proceeding with the two parameters resolutions that are in front of you tonight. And Justin will be walking through this presentation, which you also have in paper form in front of you. And if I talk long enough, you will soon be joining us live. Very good. Justin, welcome. Thank you. The council has your presentation available in front of them in paper, or if you wanted to pull it up on the screen, either one. Council has approved taking up the two resolutions related to 2021 financing out of order. So those are next up in front of them for action on the agenda following your presentation.
Yeah, that sounds good, Greg. Well, I'll just kind of walk through the presentation since you have it in front of you. This is really a follow-up to the presentation that and discussion that we had with the Personnel and Finance Committee a few weeks ago. So I'll keep this fairly brief tonight, but if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to stop me. So go to page 2 of the presentation. This really gives an interest rate update to council, and it really shows what the interest rates have done over the last year. As you see, interest rates are still at the historic lows. When we entered the market last year, it was kind of the perfect timing because the interest rates took their big drop, and we were able to lock in shortly after. So fortunately, they've stayed pretty low throughout the whole entire year. As you can see a little bit to the right, they started up a little bit, and there was a variety of different reasons for that, which could be from inflation to more optimism with vaccines and so forth. A lot of different reasons why interest rates are going up a little bit, but at the same time, there's also a lot of caution with, as far as not just domestically, but when you think globally, what's going on around the world in COVID and so forth, and interest rates are doing in foreign governments. So interest rates are still very low, and I would anticipate that we will be able to lock in these very, very low interest rates over the next month as we continue through the bond sales. The other thing that we have to take a look at is what the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands, that's through the state of Wisconsin, what their interest rates are at right now. And when we look at those, the 6 to 10 year type range, so a 10-year financing, they're at a 3%. And what I'll show you on the next page is that, we evaluated this, and based on the, where interest rates are in the public debt market and so forth, it makes sense to go that route like we have in the last couple of years. Page 3 of the presentation. This is the timeline. So again, I went through this with Personnel and Finance on April 7th, where we're recommended to move forward with the plan of finance and the parameters resolutions. This is when you will consider the parameters resolutions. And again, these parameters resolutions, as the city has done in the past, give the authority for the sign off of the bond sales within the designated parameters to the city manager or finance director. Preparations are currently in process for putting together the documentation necessary to enter the bond market and so forth, and then hopefully kind of early to mid-May is when we anticipate being in position and being ready to enter the bond market when it's most optimal. It's going to happen on June 7th, and then the payoff state trust fund loan on June 21st. So the two issues being proposed tonight is the first one is the general obligation promissory notes in the amount of $1,915,000. This is to fund the city 2021 capital improvement projects, all levy supported. The structure is going to mature April 1 of 2022 to 2031, with the first interest being April 1 of 2022. Callable to be determined, but we're thinking it's going to be April 1 of 2028. If we can do a shorter call without it costing the city money, we'll go that route, but that's kind of where we're seeing is it's not costing for that type of call feature. The interest rate on that is a 1.97. So, anytime you can get 10-year financing for under 2%, that would be tremendous. So that's the hope and goal is that we can finalize around there, but we still have a few weeks before we're able to enter the market. And things can change, but what we're putting in place for the parameters is not to exceed 2.5% for the interest rate. But again, hopefully we come in much lower than that. The other issuance is a $780,000 taxable general obligation refunding bond. This is going to refund the state trust fund loan that was done in 2019 for TID number 12 supported projects. And this will mature April 1 of 2023 to 2039, for being April 1 of 2022. Callable again to be determined. But we're thinking April 1 of 2029 is the feature that will cost the city money. And then the estimated interest rate is a 2.67%. And again, this is taxable versus tax exempt. The other things after cost of issuance are factored in is going to save the city about $69,520 if we can finish close at interest rate. And then the max parameters where it won't make economic sense to move forward is if it passed 3% for a max interest rate. So those are kind of the two main parameters that are being set. But again, hopefully we finish much lower as we have in the past. On to page 4 of the presentation, this is a lot of numbers on here, but when really the highlight here is on the left side of the page, that's the state trust fund loan from 2019. It's at that % interest rate. We're trying to, see if we can finance and capture in the public market at 2.67%, which on the right, it translates into about, $16,000 in that first year, because ultimately we're pushing out principal because of the cash flows within TID number 12, free up that a little bit, and then you can see the savings thereafter. In total, it comes out to be $69,520. So that would be tremendous. Over the last several years, since 2019, the city has refinanced the vast majority of its outstanding debt, which has been great. And we think about how much the savings that's been for the city. It's been about $325,000 in debt service savings by refinancing. And so hopefully we can capture another 70 here and get to $400,000 in total savings over the last several years, taking advantage of these crazy low interest rates that we're seeing in the marketplace right now.
Justin, a couple things, if I might. First, thank you for your role in that, because the city has taken advantage and the council has authorized every opportunity for interest rate savings. This is the only one this time around that we have outstanding where it looks like there should be that opportunity. And I just wanted to ask, while we still have you up, I noted the resolution from bond counsel came at a not to exceed $800,000 on that one. Now, granted, if we only need 780, we'll only do 780. But can you explain why that relatively small discrepancy? But the resolution was at not to exceed 800,000.
Yeah, that's a great question, and really, what only thing is we added a little cushion in there just to account for, if our payoff is slightly off, or if a fee comes in higher than what we're projecting and so forth. But ultimately, what we're probably going to end up with is at that 780,000 or lower, like done in the past. But it's really that just to give us flexibility, because I've been doing this a long time, and all of a sudden something happens where it's a little bit higher than what the amount we're showing tonight, and you had a little bit more flexibility in there versus then you'd have to go through and get a new parameter resolution adopted. So we just add a little cushion in there just to be safe.
Thank you. And again, that final award resolution will come back to the council for final action in any event. Thank you.
Justin, one thing if I can ask a question, one thing we talked about the other night is the savings itself, the 69,397. That is the savings after your fees or any thing you're getting paid for, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're not going to have any surprises with anything on top of that. That'll be a savings you're forecasting based on this interest rate on this schedule right now.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Mr. President, I'd also like to confirm as a member of the committee that this is spending that's been approved by the current budget. It's in the budget, and this is not additional or incremental spending for the city's budget, merely a way to save.
We're trying to lower the interest rate and refinance what's already been out there for a loan, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Mark.
Okay, well, I will continue then on page 5 of the presentation. This is the long-term generalization debt financing plan for the city that we've been creating and we created and have been updating over the last many years. On the left side of the page, that's the existing debt service for the city on a levy basis. So you can see what it is on an annual basis over the next, 15 years there. Then in the middle of the page, that's the financing that we're talking about tonight, the $1,915,000. We're structuring the debt repayment schedule to ultimately meet on the right side of the page to keep the debt service at the $2,367,870 that we're at in 2021. So ultimately keeping the debt service levy the same in 2022. So there is no increase to the general obligation debt service levy. That's how we're proposing it. We're also factoring in hypothetical future borrowings because we want to do that forward planning. Ultimately, doing an average of, say, $1,750,000 every year for capital investments, layering that into that future issues column to ultimately project out what the future debt may look like. And so what we're trying to do is keep the debt service levy pretty consistent year over year into the future. The last page, page 6, this is, always, this is a good page to look at because, what is we took a look at the last several years since 2016, what the debt capacity for the city has been. So general obligation debt, you're limited to that on for municipalities, 5% of your equalized valuation. Well, the valuation for the city has fluctuated over the last several years. And really, when you think about it, in 2018 is when we started to see, or 2018 is when we kind of hit the low point for the city. And then 2019, it went 525 million and then 545 million in 2020. So we saw about a $50 million increase over the last 2 years to the city's valuation. That increase allows for additional general obligation bonding capacity. And so what you're seeing here is that we've been able to stay around the 30% mark for a capacity available to the city. And what we're showing going to the red bars in there, that's the 2021 borrowing. And then all the blue bar is the hypothetical future $1,750,000 capital investment borrowings. So what you see in there is that by keeping it pretty consistent and by paying off debt at a high rate, you're actually increasing your debt capacity year over year. And really in 2023, you'll get to the point where you'll have potentially about 40% remaining capacity, which is a goal of the city, and it's very achievable as long as you stay kind of on that path to be around $1,750,000 on average for your capital borrowings. So this is a nice picture. It shows you're on the right track, and this also assumes only 1% growth to the valuation. Over the last couple of years, you've been growing substantially more than that, but we also have seen prior years where the valuation has decreased. Hopefully going forward, we see it continue to increase year over year, but this just it takes a conservative approach and shows a 1% growth to the value.
Okay,
Very good. Thank you, Justin. The only other thing I would just point out to council, you may note in both Justin's presentation on page 3 and in the resolutions, the estimated interest rate based on current market conditions that Baird would hope to obtain for us when the new borrowing goes to market, the $1,915,000, 1.97%. The parameters resolution you're asked to act upon tonight gives the city manager or finance director essentially the ability to lock in the rate when Baird goes to market on our behalf, provided that rate is not exceeding 2.5%. That gives us some margin there if, God forbid, there's some sharp upward movement in interest rates. It still would represent a good rate compared to the alternative we have with the state trust fund, which would be 3% presently for a 10-year a 10-year borrowing. The estimated interest rate for the refunding bonds is higher at 2.67%. The corresponding parameters interest rate is higher at 3%, still better than the 4% we are at right now. But again, I would just note a couple things. That will be a taxable issue because when borrowing is for private benefit, as it was in this case with a grant to the hotel developers, it's taxable. Therefore, you pay a higher interest rate. And note also that is for, I believe, 18 years, 17 or 18 years remaining on a 20-year issue. So the new borrowing is 10-year. That's why it's termed as notes. The refinancing is, again, 17 or 18 years. It's a longer-term issue. It's taxable, thus the higher projected rate and the higher rate in the parameters resolution for that financing. I think I got that right, Justin. Is that straight?
You did.
Okay. Very good. And if council wishes, while Mr. Fisher from Baird, our financial advisors, is still on the line, would ask that you now consider out of order as council authorized by previous motion and vote the resolutions that are items 11G and H.
Okay. We can do that. Can we just give a second? Mr. Wachowski just joined us, so he's looking at the documents right now, and I explained to him that really what it is a refinancing at a lower rate. We're asking Baird to go out there and do market rate evaluations, come back to council with what they found, and hopefully we'll have lower interest rates we'll be paying on this debt. The debt we already took and is already in the budget. So it's not added debt, it's just refinancing. It'd be like refinancing your house if you could refinance your house at a lower interest rate.
And the resolution,
think about it that way.
Yeah, and the resolution, just so it's crystal clear, Councilmember Wachowski and the rest of you, does give that authorization to the finance director and city manager to lock in a rate if it's below the ceiling that's cited in each. So if it's below 2.5% on the borrowing for new projects, and if it's below 3% for the refinancing. Current market indications are to be a fair amount lower than that, but that's typically how these parameters resolutions work. They give you a little bit of headroom.
A reminder, it has to come back through the council to be approved to go, right?
Yes, the final sale, Justin, that will come back to council for approval after you've secured.
Well, I will definitely make I will give a presentation on the final sale results, but this ultimately gives authority for the bond sale.
That's right.
Between those council meetings, because, we really want to be able to have that flexibility to enter the bond market between board meetings, because if, the market is not cooperating on a council date, we don't want to be in the market just because of that.
Good point. So to clarify that, you are giving, and I don't recall it's manager or finance director, one or the other, the authority to bind the city for the dollar amounts identified as long as the interest rates are at or below what is cited in the parameters resolution.
Understand.
So then it's more in the form of a report back after market.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Justin.
So we're looking at resolution on number G that we moved up, that we already authorized to move up the agenda. So I'm looking for a motion to approve or allow the resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $1,915,000 in general obligation promissory note funding for the 2021 capital projects. I'm looking for a motion to waive and adopt that resolution. Do I have one?
So moved.
Got a motion? Do I have a second? Thank you, Bill. Any more discussion regarding this? And hang in there, Justin, so we can ask if there's questions coming your way. Any questions or anything anyone wants to bring up? Jay?
I didn't catch what you were talking about, Greg, with when this loan is coming due, and then if we refinance, are we going out longer?
No. Of course, the new financing is 10-year, brand new financing. The refinancing is for the balance. The original borrowing was a 20-year term. This is for a shorter term, so we aren't extending out the repayment. This is solely for interest rate savings.
Any other questions?
And Justin just did affirm that is correct.
Yes, that is. So we always try when we refinance to not go longer than the original terms. If anything, shorten it and lower the interest rate. We'd rather pay it off faster with less interest going out in the market and use our cash for other things. Any other questions? Okay, so because this is a resolution authorizing that, I'm looking for a roll call vote. Jamie?
Adam Woleski.
Aye.
Kurt Andrews.
Aye.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
John Cassavant.
Aye.
Kay Coach.
Aye.
Darla LeClaire.
Aye.
Bill LeClaire.
Aye.
Jay Remiker. Bonnie Shimulinis.
Aye.
All yeses.
Thank you. Let's move on to H, which is the resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $800,000, which Greg called out as $780,000 on our dockets, but not to exceed $800,000 taxable general obligation refunding bonds. And that's the item we discussed earlier in your docket as well, where they'll be looking at going out, and that could have a potential savings, as cited here, of $69,520 to the city based on the forecasted interest rate and the forecasted bonds that are out there. I'm looking for a motion to waive that reading and adopt that resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I got one from Bill. I have a second from Darla. I think you guys had a tie. Any other discussion on that resolution that's in front of us? Any questions for Justin? Seeing none, again, it's a roll call, Jamie.
Kurt Andrews.
Aye.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
John Cassavant.
Aye.
Kay Coach. Darla LeClaire.
Aye.
Bill LeClaire. Jay Remiker.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulinis.
Aye.
Adam Woleski.
Aye.
All yeses.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you for all the hard work, and we look for you to come in with even better rates than you're showing us. Okay.
Have a good evening, Justin.
Thank you.
Adam, you missed it before. The savings that they're showing includes their fee structure.
Okay.
So it's not going to be any additional fee on top of that. There's no catch on the back end. Greg, we're going back to you for your city manager report. We are now officially starting your status update.
Yes. One moment for the technical end of things. Thank you, which I would have messed up really badly. Thank you to our city clerk and Dave Dassey, our IT guy tonight. This doesn't have a lot of pretty graphics because I didn't have an assistant today, and it's been kind of crazy today, so I'll keep it short. First of all, as Kurt noted earlier, we do extend congratulations to our re-elected council member, Kurt Andrews, and to council members-elect Jeff Dahlke and Tracy Coach. The council will hold its reorganizational meeting tomorrow night here at 6 o'clock. It's not a televised meeting, but it is absolutely a public meeting. Public's welcome to attend. And all three will be sworn in. We'll have the opportunity to sign the council's code of conduct. The council will then proceed to elect the president and vice president of council for the coming year. To draw, I'm going from memory, to draw seating assignments. That's a random draw process. And also to pass a resolution pertaining to the normal order of business for regular city council meetings. I do have on the agenda as well talking about a possible date for a special meeting for a council orientation session. And I think that pretty well covers the agenda for tomorrow night's reorganizational meeting. City manager convenes that meeting. It's the one meeting of the year that the city manager presides at until you elect a new president. By the way, that is done typically by paper ballot. It's the only case where statute allows secret ballot, the election of president and vice president of council. Then the elected council president will take over presiding at that meeting. So, again, congratulations to our council members, both re-elected and newly elected. We'll also get you some dates. The League of Municipalities for newly elected council members has Local Government 101, their council member orientation session. Some of you, when you were newly elected council members, attended that back in the pre-COVID days. There are 3 different dates this year that it's being offered online as essentially a Zoom session. And any council members are welcome to participate in that. You don't have to just be newly elected. 24th Street construction project. Activity has been a frenzy up there. The first phase of construction has focused on the west end of the project from Forest Avenue to Adams Street. Sanitary sewer main has been installed throughout that area and is in use. The water main is being installed this week, and the installation of new laterals will begin next week. All the homes are connected to that new sewer main, some with their old laterals reconnected, some with new lateral, at least in the public right-of-way. But for that west end of the project, the sanitary sewer is functioning. The water main should be done by the end of the week. That one can take a little longer because of course, they have to pressurize it and do bacteriological testing to make sure it's safe before cutting over the water services. But the contractor's making good headway. Inspections for lead lateral replacement have been completed in at least 45 of the 50 homes in the project area, so that's good news. We wanted the contractor, Mammoth, along with our inspectors, to get in there early, get the cost estimates for those folks so they can make their financing arrangements for anything beyond the $2,500 private side water lateral grant that's available through the city. So it's coming along fast, and we expect in early May they will be into the underground work in the area to the west, or excuse me, to the east of Adams Street over to Jefferson. So trees that are remaining, if you've heard of some marked with blue ribbons, those are to be treated with a root growth promoter that'll hopefully reduce some of the shock and help those be sustained. So that's 24th Street. 25th and Madison, that project construction is expected to start the last week in May. That contractor had other activities, not in such a big hurry to get started. And engineering department is looking at a neighborhood pre-construction meeting, looking at a date in early May. There should not, I promise you, there should not be the issues that were on 24th Street. Those two streets are being rebuilt to their existing widths. There's not a lot of latitude, as I understand, to go wider there. And we had more dialogue with 25th and Madison homeowners and residents last year, you might recall, because that's a project that actually got to the point of bid award. And then we pulled back at that point and did not contract for the project because COVID was coming down around our ears and a lot of concerns there. So we'll keep you updated as to when that pre-con meeting is, but it will, I won't say it'll have the luxury, but it'll allow a little more breathing time from that meeting until construction starts up. Wanted to report, and you've got the minutes in your packet, on the most recent splash pad and ice skate planning committee meeting. That was held on Thursday, April 8th. At the committee's direction from their January meeting, the project design consultant came back and reviewed the 3 possible locations the committee was interested in: Neshota Park, Washington Park, and Central Park West. There was good discussion. We had 7 of 9 committee members there, several city council members not on the committee, some members of the public. The 7 committee members present unanimously recommended pursuing the project at the Central Park West site. That's a significant recommendation because it would, if the council blesses it, it would mean the planning effort from this point forward, the design effort focuses on that site. That would be a more ambitious project because it would get into other elements of the site, like the bandstand and the trees at the north end of the park, which are in really tough shape, as we've noted and the consultant noted. So to assist in making sure that recommendation is clear to council and give the council the opportunity for dialogue, we invited at that meeting members of the planning committee to attend the council work session on April 26, next Monday. And we also have the design consultant available to Zoom in for that meeting and walk through his findings in a more abbreviated form as were reviewed at the committee meeting. So good session. The committee elected, as you probably saw in the minutes, their chair, Sheila Bialik, and Wendy Kozlowski-Brandt is the vice president for that committee. So two of the citizen members stepping up for those leadership roles. Water Department would like to remind everybody that there's going to be some upcoming inspection work at the Bellevue Reservoir. That's about a 2.5 million gallon reservoir underground up on Bellevue. It has to be taken out of service, drained, or pumped down actually, isolated from the rest of the inspection, and visually inspected at least once every 10 years per DNR requirements. So starting next Monday, it'll be taken off the system, pumped down, making use to the extent possible of the water that's in it out in the system. And it'll be out at a minimum all of next week and may start filling actually the week of May 3rd, right, Ross? The following week. So maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks max, unless something unforeseen comes up. And that will affect pressures on the north side. We have, with valving in the system, which some of you on the Utilities Committee might recall, and with pumps that keep pressure, higher pressure than would otherwise exist in the north side of town. That area shown in blue on the slide is the area where you're not going to have low water pressure, and it's certainly going to be high enough to be plenty safe, but your shower in the morning may not be as invigorating as it usually is. And I don't know, Ross, if you had anything else to add to that, or... If the pressure in that zone drops just by a few pounds, those check valves open up, and the high lift pumps from the plant and of course the pressure from the two water towers that maintains pressure in the rest of the system, everything shown in white there, will take care of it. That high pressure zone was established as a separate area when water was extended out Double V and north on 42 to the high school to just improve pressure with that expanded system.
Can you say those dates again when that's going to be happening so people out there are aware that the pressure goes low and they're wondering what's going on?
Actually, Ross, you want to come and speak to that? Sure. Thank you.
We're going to be taking it out Monday, the 26th. We're going to start filling it again if we can Wednesday, but we do have to have certain criteria to make our chlorines and things like that and bacteriological testing and stuff. So they can be set back a day or two, depending how much we can fill at one time. We'll do our diligence to make sure we get up and done as quick as we can, but it can be as long as probably be Monday, I'm guessing. I don't have the date right offhand, but that would be like May 3rd. I would think we should be up and running. If you do have any questions, again, you call the water department. We'll be glad to explain it to anybody, figure out what's going on, and assist you in any way we can. And those numbers are in the book. So
I encourage us to over-communicate as well on the city websites and anything else we can do so you can avoid the calls coming in, because not everybody's watching this. So thank you for that.
And we'll get that out on Facebook as we head into the weekend and next Monday and share it with some of the community groups out there on Facebook.
So if you know a friend on the south side, take your showers over there. I'm just kidding. Okay. We're rotating back and forth.
Just if you get all in a lather, it might take a little bit longer to get out of it. So, thank you, Ross. And again, that's all about maintaining the infrastructure, making sure it's safe and dependable for the users. We will have some upcoming events to commemorate Arbor Day, including a tree planting at the new cemetery. There's also a volunteer effort for Arbor Day cleanup at the Halt Nature Park out on Woodland Drive on May 1st from 4 to 6 p.m. I know Terry Vosters will probably share at a future meeting. We've had a volunteer or a citizen contact us about placing a memorial bench out there as a tribute to the Halts. So that'll be coming back. Some of you may not be aware, that's a wooded area just north of Wisconsin nationwide within the city limits. Some of you are aware of it because we've addressed and hopefully in final form some issues as far as volunteer cleanup and taking care of that area. So good things for Arbor Day, and that helps us keep our Tree City USA designation, not to mention doing right by the trees. Staffing updates, department heads working with Jamie, our city clerk and human resources coordinator, have completed recruitment, preliminary screening, interviews, and preliminary offers of employment have now been extended to the top candidates for the positions of police clerk and utilities administrative assistant. Again, that police clerk position is a new full-time position in the police department authorized with this year's budget by council to address notably records requests and other administrative duties that are high priorities and not getting any lighter. The utilities administrative assistant is to come on board. There's budget for some overlap in time, but Kay Nooker, our very capable utility administrative assistant, will be retiring later this spring. And we've got, from everything I hear, 2 outstanding candidates. If all goes well and they come on board, we'll get them here to City Council to introduce them to council and to the community. But good job by the departments and our city clerk on that. The only other things I'd like to share right offhand, we did close today on the purchase of the property west of Tannery Road off the ends of 41st, 42nd, and 43rd Streets as previously authorized by City Council. So that transaction has occurred. I guess that's all I had under B, status and update reports, unless anybody had any questions on that. Moving down to intergovernmental update. Senator Jacques was here today from 11 to, ended up being about 12:20 for a listening session, not just related to the upcoming state budget, but anything folks are interested in. We had 15 citizens and several of our department heads here. Andre was very generous with his time, stayed over. We had some good discussion. I did share with him again in front of the group the resolution of City Council from back in February urging an increase in funding for the state shared revenues program. That had previously been sent to him by email. Also shared with Andre the League of Municipalities position statement on some other items that are in the state budget. He was familiar with those. Those included increasing, if at all possible, funding for general transportation aids. You might remember when he was last here with Representative Sortwell, Senator Jacques was more optimistic about maybe getting more money into the general transportation aids program than shared revenues. He, I think, had pretty much the same take on it. Today, he expressed support for the state continuing to help communities with lead water lateral replacement, recognizing that's important for older cities like Two Rivers. And it was just generally a good discussion. I won't spend too much time on the next one, but again, it is an intergovernmental issue of importance where, as Councilmember Bittner mentioned, we did have that joint meeting last week, Monday, of the room tax commissions from Two Rivers and Manitowoc, along with the board of directors for the Manitowoc Area Visitor Convention Bureau. We talked about possible terms for a new tourism services agreement to replace the current agreement, which runs out at the end of this year, current 5-year agreement. We did present a position paper with 8 points, which is in your council packets tonight, regarding Two Rivers' position on what should, and in some cases shouldn't be, from our view, in a renewal. We had 100% attendance from our room tax commission, which is council members Bittner, Bill LeClaire, Kurt Andrews, Jim Van Lanen Jr. of the Lighthouse Inn, and myself.
Peter Crabb.
And Peter Crabb who actually sits on the VCB board.
Right.
Yeah, it was not a full turnout, but a good strong quorum of the VCB board, Visitor Convention Bureau board, and all of the Manitowoc Room Tax Commission. As Mark said, we've got some issues that separate us at this point, and there will be a follow-up meeting with 2 members of each of the room tax commissions and the respective city attorneys next week, Monday, at 4 o'clock. so we can, if we include it on the agenda that night, we can at least give you a follow-up report on that. I believe it's next week, Monday.
It's the 3rd.
Yeah, the 3rd. Yep. Oh, I apologize. 2 weeks. I'm ahead of myself. 2 weeks out. 2 weeks out. So if we list it on the agenda that night, we can give you an update on that.
That'd be a good idea.
Thank you. Sorry for that error. That's all that I have. Again, you do have that City of Two Rivers renewal proposal in your packets. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you all who participated in updating us in the manager's report. Let's go to consent agenda. We've got a presentation of minutes from the City Council regular meeting on April 5th, 2021, a motion to waive that reading and adopt those minutes. On applications and petitions, we've got an application, new application for a combination Class A beer / Class A liquor license. And that, you can see it in front of you as far as where we're looking at who's asking for that. I'd say their name, but I think I'd butcher it. But it is motion to approve the application and authorize the city clerk to issue that license, as well as they're looking for a new cigarette license application for the same location. Motion to approve an ad application and authorize the city clerk to issue that license. On reports, we got minutes of meetings from 12 different groups. Motion to receive and place those on file. And the department reports for March 2021, we've got 10 department reports. And again, the recommended action is a motion to receive and file those. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the various actions recommended. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the various actions recommended.
Adam, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jay. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Yes, Bonnie.
about like the thing, the 8 points for MAVCB. It says whoever makes I can't remember how they said it, but whoever brings in the most room tax should be on the council. I mean, on the committee. I think that. How much does the Village Inn, aren't they comparable? What I'm trying to say is it seems to me there's going to be 3 people, 3 units that are going to be bringing in money. And does the Village Inn, how does that compare to?
There's a couple issues there. Right now, the board structure includes at least 3 hotels. By definition, in the MAVCB bylaws and in the current funding agreement, both provide that the Visitor Convention Bureau Board will include the 2 largest room tax paying entities from Manitowoc, and historically that's been the Holiday Inn and
Right.
the Inn on the Bay, whatever it's called these days.
Baymont.
Thank you, the Baymont. And for Two Rivers, the single largest room tax paying entity, which is the Lighthouse Inn.
Okay, I understand that, but I guess I was sort of getting at, could it be a rotation thing? Like if, well, I guess I just was wondering about that.
If the Visitor Convention Bureau were inclined to change its bylaws in that manner.
Oh, you mean the Convention Bureau has these as bylaws?
It's in their bylaws.
All right.
And right now, those bylaws are pretty much in sync with the Tourism Services Agreement, where
Right.
the 2 cities presume to have some say in that board makeup, if you will. The other thing, while we're on that topic of board makeup, that I think is more disturbing for Two Rivers is, well, let me say first, nothing precludes additional lodging facilities from being on the board in those other positions that are simply supposed to be representing businesses that are in the tourism industry. That could be an attraction, it could be a store, it could be, we've had B&B owners on there, like when Rodewalt's had the Red Forest. It could be an additional, one or more additional hotel, motel representatives. It's just that right now the bylaws say the 2 biggest in Manitowoc by dollar volume and the largest in TR.
Okay.
The thing that probably bothers us more here, and has been Manitowoc's proposal, as we understand it right now, is that the makeup of the VCB board, currently 13 members, right now it's 7 positions that are either a Two Rivers council member, that Two Rivers lodging facility, or another 4 positions that are appointed by the VCB board but are to represent attractions or tourism businesses in Two Rivers. And Manitowoc has a total of 7 seats. Oh, and of course the council rep. So council rep, 1 lodging establishment, 4 from the tourism sector, gives 6 from TR. Manitowoc has the 2 largest room tax paying entities, common council rep, and 4 folks from the visitor business, tourism business sector. So that's 7. Manitowoc has indicated they would like those, I'll call them general business citizen reps, to be proportioned based on how much room tax comes from each of the cities. So it would go from a 7-6 split, Manitowoc, Two Rivers, if you choose to view it that way, down to a 9-4 or 10-3 split. And we've strenuously opposed that. That is how the makeup would be if you based it solely on room tax dollars. But when we were invited back in 15 years ago by then Mayor Crawford and the city of Manitowoc, Two Rivers was offered, to have just 1 less representative in total than Manitowoc. It stayed that way through 2 renewals. I think anybody that served on that committee or gone to their meetings would tell you it's not like people are there in their Two Rivers or Manitowoc T-shirts and at war with each other. They're all pulling for the common good. So I'm sorry, I went a little off topic, but that's a big concern as well.
Well, no, it's not really off topic that much. I don't understand the rift because I've been on that committee and nobody acts like that. Everybody on that committee is really interested in tourism in the area. They're not trying to fight for the tourists, not the committee members.
No. Well, the other piece of it, frankly, is that Manitowoc's position has been to advocate that each of those reps on there, other than the 2 council members and the 3 lodging industry reps, the other 8, be appointees by the mayor or city manager approved by their respective city councils, whereas right now the majority of the board is not appointed by the 2 cities but is appointed by the VCB board itself. That 501c6 has a board that perpetuates most of its membership through its own appointments. That would be a change. We've raised a concern as to whether that is legitimate to have under the IRS regs to have governmental units appointing the majority of membership on that board. But if you really view it as a group that's spending dollars collected by lodging establishments to promote tourism business, it just seems to make a lot of sense. And I don't think I'm speaking out of line. This is what our Room Tax Commission has said, that those people, we don't need as governmental units to be dictating all of the membership there.
Okay.
Greg, let me just ask you, because I don't remember how those rules were anymore, but how does that new wording go if, say, Darla, as a business owner, wants to be on that board, but she's also a council member? Is that a hang-up?
I would defer to the city attorney, who probably hasn't studied the bylaws for that. I'm not aware of language that precludes it, but I don't know. If
I can. What you want to make certain of, if you want to retain the 501c6 exemption, is you want to avoid a situation basically where governments are in control.
Well,
would even by a majority appointed by the governments, you might be putting that exemption in jeopardy by making it more of a government entity than
what I was thinking is the local businessmen who want to participate in that is getting slimmer and slimmer. So if we wanted to utilize, that would be sort of to our advantage. Plus now we have another hotel in the mix, so that helps.
We can look into that. I don't believe that issue is specifically addressed in the current bylaws, but you want to be cautious, as Jack says, not to jeopardize the C6 tax exempt status. So stay tuned. The current agreement runs through the end of the year. Both cities are obligated to send roughly 52% of our room tax to the Visitor Convention Bureau. There is a June 1 deadline where any of the parties can give notice that it doesn't intend to renew, because the way the current agreement is written, if you run past June 1st, the agreement automatically renews. And frankly, I don't know that any of us are wanting to see it just automatically renew. So that's a date all three entities, we just look out for ours though, need to keep out in front of us. And by the way, while we're reporting here, the legal entity that enters into the contract for the services agreement is the Room Tax Commission. So while we want to keep the full council briefed, the statutory authority is vested in the Room Tax Commission, the 5-member body I just mentioned. And that's pretty much as a result of a change in the law back in 2017. Yeah.
We're also trying to get the agreement, instead of 5 years, which we're currently in, to get to a 3-year. We think 5 years is a little bit of a stretch. So we're trying to shorten the agreements just so we have flexibility and we see what's happening in a 3-year period rather than a 5-year. It kind of locks you in.
Yeah, it's a 5-year, but it has the ability to opt out early in 3 out of the 5 years. So
right.
We thought a compromise would be, let's really commit, but to a shorter period.
So you'll see the notes in front of you. There's quite a few things we're going to be discussing when they're in here on May 3rd, and the Room and Tax Committee will enlighten and bring you guys up to speed on what comes out of this. Hopefully it's a positive thing. Any other discussion regarding anything else in the area we just discussed? Enough discussion? All in favor of moving on? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Let's move to number 11, the City Council formal items. We got quite a few. 2 of them we already knocked out, which is great news, as Dave is trying to get home for the Brewer game tonight at 9:10. We'll move on to Proclamation of Arbor Day, April 30th, 2021. I'm looking for a motion to waive that reading and adopt that proclamation. That is in your deck, correct?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Bonnie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jay. Any discussion regarding that? Okay, let's move to, are you going to read that for us, or is someone going to read it?
We had waive reading, but
We can waive the reading, not a problem. Thank you. All in favor of waiving that reading?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, guys.
for folks that like to read resolutions, it's posted on the city website.
Thank you. On the city website, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to read those. Number B, official newspaper declaration and bid. A motion to accept the bid as submitted and declare the Herald Time Reporter as the official newsletter or newspaper of the city of Two Rivers. Do I have a motion to accept that?
I'll make a motion to accept that.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion regarding that?
In recent years, this kind of brings some grimaces each time it comes up, but I would just mention it is a statutory requirement that we have an official newspaper. It has to be one that has a paid subscription base in the area. City attorney can speak to it more if you wish, but this is an annual exercise. We don't have good alternatives under the current law.
May I ask what would happen if they went out of business? I don't think they're too far away from that sometimes, but
I think what would happen, but I'd have to check to make sure. I think what would happen is that the law gives a municipality leeway in terms of looking at other newspapers with a paid subscription basis as alternatives. I don't think they've changed it yet, so a shopper or like the Lakeshore Chronicle can function as an official newspaper.
Build on that. Do they count online subscriptions for newspapers as a subscription model versus paper itself being delivered? Do you know?
I don't know.
'Cause that's where most of them are migrating to, so you're all aware that they're asking for you to subscribe online.
Can vouch that it's paid subscription basis. City attorney's going to be checking that one for us.
Question.
It's an antiquated concept. You know, there's been some progress made over the years. We used to have to publish each new ordinance in its entirety in that general circulation newspaper. when new ordinances were approved by council. More recent years, we can do summaries, but the print media is an interest group, and they do lobby on these issues. Jack?
A newspaper is published at the place from which its mailing permit is issued.
We will follow up and get an answer to that question. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll have a follow-up to the question Adam raised. Thank you, Adam, for that. All in favor of accepting the bid as submitted and declaring the Herald Time Reporter as official newspaper of Two Rivers? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to number C, the concierge agreement for an Neshota Beach concession stand with ice clouds. The recommended action there is a motion to authorize the Director of Parks and Recreation and the City Clerk to sign the agreement on behalf of the city with any changes as approved by the City Manager and the City Attorney. And I believe this is in your packet. Packet number 79 is where it begins, and then it rolls through to, oh man, I want to say 89.
This is largely as was written last year. We have updated the insurance language consistent with discussions with both the city attorney and our insurance carrier. And I'm sorry, I'm looking for that language. We had required oh dear. Okay. We had, I'm sorry, this I think this is an earlier version because we just changed this Friday and I don't know that the clerk got it. But what we've got out to the vendor is that the commercial general liability insurance, which is packet page 84, item 20, be $1 million per occurrence and $2 million aggregate. Likewise, that there be automotive liability of $1 million combined single limit, and that the city be a named insured and provided with a certificate of insurance. That is, I wanted to highlight that, but that is in the language that we have presented to the concessionaire. So it's higher insurance limits than are shown here. I can tell you when we got the certificate of insurance last year from the concession operator, they had the $1 million, $2 million on general liability.
And I stand corrected, it's through page 94, not 89, so there's more on that. 10% is still the proceeds that we're collecting based on gross sales?
Yep.
Okay, this is a one-year contract?
This is a one-year contract, correct.
And I think it's a typo error in the heading. It's just the Neshota Beach. It's not the Vietnam.
Correct. And I apologize. Terry and I were on the phone on this Friday afternoon, and I'm sorry we didn't get that over to our clerk to put out there. But it is solely for Neshota Beach.
So are we going to make a motion to approve with the changes we just discussed?
If you're comfortable with that, fine. Otherwise, a tabling to the next meeting.
Yeah, it sounds like we got a couple of different changes here.
And I apologize because we went over those as a staff and that didn't get in here.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to table this to the next meeting. Do I have one?
I'll make the motion to table at the next meeting.
Thank you. So we can get all the proper changes in and we can review it. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And if we'd like to have Terry here too, that'd be good. She could answer some of the questions that we may have.
Yes, and Terry was unable to be here tonight, so
that'd be great.
That might be better all the way around.
Okay, let's move to D, which is the addendum to the 2021 capital budget to provide an additional $28,000 for playground equipment at Neshota Park. You've got that in your, actually you have an updated version that was handed out on page 95. But the updated version does not have a page number on it. It says on top, resolution amending the 2021 capital projects fund budget. So Greg, you want to walk us through that and how we're able to find the $28,000?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Actually, the resolution in front that was a handout tonight incorporates the table that was in your packet, but it incorporates it now into a resolution. So same number changes proposed, but in the form of a resolution. There's an existing budget, a capital budget that was approved for Parks and Rec capital projects with a grand total of $156,000 in budgeted expenditures. Within that budget, there are funds for phase one of a playground equipment replacement project at Neshota Park, and our council reps on the rec board can speak to that as well. That equipment has been ordered. Most all of it is in. It should be installed, as I understand it, well before Memorial Day and the start of serious summer around here. The rec board has noted that and the rec director, they'd like to continue with replacing the play equipment at Neshota, which is outdated, some of which needs to be pulled for safety concerns. It's about 20 years old. And in discussions, there's good support and interest, if the council sees fit, to add one more piece of equipment this year. And that's what this amendment addresses, and that is $28,000 that could be applied to the purchase and installation of a so-called zip line piece of play apparatus. This is not something that goes whistling through the treetops. It's a little more modest than that, but it's a nice piece of play equipment. The $28,000 would cover an $18,000 purchase, estimated $5,000 install cost, and about $5,000 for the safe landing material, the shredded rubber, not the poured in place, which is the ultimate. Maybe that's in the future. I know Councilmember Woheski has been very interested in this as one of the rec board members, and I certainly welcome him speaking to it.
This came up. I saw it at another park somewhere, which was a neat, cool design where you actually sit on the thing. You don't necessarily hang from it. So it's got a piece that comes down, you sit on it, and you zip from one end to the other end. They make them, I think, 50, 75, and 100 feet in distance. And the kids and adults, actually, I saw riding it, absolutely love it. There was a line. There was people using this thing in the middle of winter. So it was quite the attraction. And I think being at Neshota Beach, where we attract the most guests, both from in town and out of town, is the best spot for it. So very much in favor of this.
Real enthusiasm from the advisory rec board, the rec department, the finance and personnel committee at its last meeting said they would be supportive if staff could show that the money can be found without increasing our borrowing. That's what you've got in front of you here. I am pointing to the Public Works equipment capital budget, where the front end loader approved recently came in $14,000 below budget, and we should be fine there because we also ended last year with a little bit better balance in that fund than we had anticipated at budget time. And the other one, Public Works Streets, $14,000. That based on the actual bids received and understanding there's a little change order in order for 24th, 25th, and Madison. But that would be, I think, within the current capital budget, the other source that should make sense for the other 14. So each of those budgets for Fund 457 and 451 would go down by $14,000 if approved by council. The budget for Parks and Cemetery capital projects, Fund 454, would go up by $28,000. That reflected both in $28,000 more in debt, because it'd be $28,000 less for those other two budgets, and an increase of $28,000 in the line item for tennis courts and playground equipment. Now, so that ends up, you would still be borrowing what was authorized earlier tonight. In all of our paperwork related to the borrowing, and I confirmed this with our finance director last week, we simply identify it's 2021 capital projects for public works, parks. It's very broadly, and various other fire, police. It's very broadly written. Now, full disclosure, we did end last year with a deficit in Parks and Cemetery capital of about $30,000. We need to address that over the course of this year. I believe we can when we see where other projects come in. So that's still something we need to do. But I believe we can do that as the rest of our capital spending falls into place. Some things come in over, some things come in under typically. But if we want to go ahead and get this piece of equipment ordered and then installed at the same time as the other phase one equipment, the climbing apparatus I shared last time, we would need this amendment approved.
And is that timing, Greg, before summer?
I believe that what I heard from Terry, this should be available and able to come in pretty soon. There may be, and it's a maybe as of yet this afternoon when I talked to her, some savings on the install available if we can coordinate it.
The timing's this summer.
But the timing should be for this summer. Yeah. You had asked Kurt to at a separate meeting, would this present an additional liability concern, add to insurance costs, and the rec director affirmed that would not be the case. And I know our city attorney would affirm Wisconsin has pretty good recreational liability. And obviously, Game Time or any other apparatus manufacturer, and this is a Game Time piece, they have to build their equipment with those safety standards in mind. I did misstate again in the agenda on the action on this. I checked with the city attorney just minutes into the meeting, but it is a 2/3, not a 3/4 vote that's required to amend the budget. I thought I put that somewhere anyway. Oh, I think I put it in the table. It's in there. Maybe I didn't put it anywhere. In any event, yeah, I misstated in the table that was on page 95 of your packet that it required 7 affirmative votes. It indeed would require a supermajority of 6, not 7.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to amend the 2021 capital budget as we just discussed and outlined.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kay. Any other discussion regarding the finding of some funds in other buckets and putting money against this one? Adam.
I just want to say I really do believe in this project and what it's going to bring to the city, to not only our citizens, but to the value it brings to people coming in to visit our city at Neshoto Park, Neshoto Beach. It's a great piece of equipment. People like that kind of stuff. It's interactive. It allows for younger kids, it allows for older kids, teenagers, and even adults to jump on this thing. It really is a lot of fun, and it's going to get a lot of use. It's really going to be a good thing for the city, so hopefully we can get this done.
Great. Okay, good testimony, and it looks like you'll be first in line. It sounds like a lot of fun.
I'll be on it.
Okay, you got it.
And for those of you who
any other discussion?
If you're at that Splash Pad Planning Committee meeting last week, as a number of you were, the consultant did say in commenting on Washington Park, on Neshoto Park, great park, you need to be replacing that playground equipment.
Yeah.
So that underscored.
Sorry, Mark.
Adam, I like the idea too, but I'm interested in, you mentioned in the winter, does that, it's pictured on 97, I believe, or 96. You don't use skis on that underneath as you're going down the zip line, or what?
No.
How does it work in the wintertime?
Well, we had a very mild winter, so it was winter time. There was just no snow on the ground.
Okay.
But I mean, it was cold outside. Is what I was saying. Is people were willing to go out when it was cold outside to go play on that piece of equipment. There was no actual snow.
The wind chill wasn't an issue, is what you're basically saying, right?
Right. More of the temperature.
All right. Any other questions, Mark?
No, that's it.
Okay, anybody else with any other discussion?
Do you know the life
Bill?
of that piece of equipment? Did anybody see how long it would last?
That I do not know.
Offhand, I would expect it would have a duration of at least 10 years, the term we're borrowing from. But in all honesty, standards change for this equipment. New safety rules come out, different things. Some equipment takes more abuse than others. So I honestly can't cite a time frame on that, Bill.
Any other discussion?
Was there any other pieces of equipment taken into consideration, or was this the only one?
I could speak to that. We're going in phases, so it's going to be phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 as we work to Neshoto Park. We just did phase 1, which was from 0 to 5. And then we started talking about, well, what are we going to do for kind of everyone that is 0 to 5, but yet 5 to 12 and anyone else. and we didn't have anything, and the stuff that's there right now is getting bad and deteriorated, so we came up with the idea to try to get that piece of equipment that could fit for everyone and also please the older kids. So that's where we came up with this idea.
Did you look at any other zip lines or?
No, we were doing everything through Game Time as they were offering us free installation, and with the first piece of apparatus, we actually got a discount on that for their winter savings, so that they were actually the most cost effective.
So it's a possibility that $5,000 on.
There's a possibility, I'm just going to say, of some savings on the installation. As of 3 o'clock or so this afternoon, Terry was not able to confirm. She hadn't seen a number back yet. All I can say is we are confident it would not exceed this budgeted amount.
Where are we getting the other $14,000?
The 2 capital budgets, 1 public works equipment, 1 public works streets.
Any other discussion? Okay, because this is amendment to the budget, Jamie, I'm going to ask you to do a roll call, please.
Bill Leclerc,
No.
Jay Remiker,
Yes.
Bonnie Shimulutis,
Aye.
Adam Holinski,
Aye.
Kurt Andrews,
Aye.
Mark Bittner,
Aye.
John Cassavant,
Aye.
Kay Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc.
No.
So we've got 7 yeses and 2 noes. Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. Let's go to number E, which is a resolution directing staff to proceed with activities necessary for the creation of a new tax incremental financing district, or TID number 15, to assist with new development on Forest Avenue. Looking for a motion to waive the reading and adopt that resolution. Start with that first, then we'll get into discussion. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to waive reading and adopt the resolution.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? You want to get into this,
I
Greg?
will, actually, I'd like to turn it over to Elizabeth, our Community Development Director. We're
Thank
not
you.
sharing a lot of names and details on this, but obviously we would before bringing a plan back for public hearing and subsequent action by council, but I'll let her speak to it.
The resolution in your packet just describes that staff has been working with a developer in the area of Forest Avenue, and the intention is to work with him to assist with development of potential new market rate new family housing, multifamily housing potentially. So in the spirit of a comfort resolution, which is what this is, it just authorizes us to continue to work with them with respect to creating TID 15, which is what this would be, which is consistent with our comprehensive planning goals to expand residential development within the city. And in this particular location, we probably would have to proceed with a planned unit development because we're dealing with multiple parcels. And so along with the discussions that we have been having with this group, there probably would be some additional infrastructure assistance contiguous to where they're potentially locating. So the general discussions have been some direct grant assistance to assist with some of the cost with the development, building costs, because it is so expensive, and some potential public infrastructure improvements that might be made as some of the amenities that will go along with the development. And some of the other TID costs that potentially be there are the interest and borrowing costs and the administrative and legal costs that will be going along with this. So that's in general terms as to what this is looking like. All of this would be subject to your approval, development agreements, and of course the JRB, Plan Commission. All of those things would be the regular process and more details at that time.
So this is the first step in that
Correct.
long
We're just
process.
very much at the beginning.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any discussion? Yes, Kay.
Elizabeth, is this apartment living?
Multifamily, yes.
Yeah, but apartment living. Like what size apartments are we talking here?
We don't have a firm number at that, and actually the form of ownership is still, in discussion.
You don't know how many? then?
We don't have a firm number yet. I think it's going to exceed probably 30 units, up a little bit more than that. Yep.
Thank you.
Bonnie?
So this is another low-income project?
No, I said market rate at the beginning. I kind of jumbled my words, but market rate, meaning, no, it's not low income, it's market rate.
Okay.
We are not creating a TIF at this time. We're just
This is just launching that process, but this is to begin a
and that we
new
will
TIF.
create a
Correct.
TIF if
Yes.
you guys move forward.
Correct.
Okay.
But to echo that, we'll see what they're doing, what they're building, what economic impact it'll have, positively or negatively, and will it be enough?
Kind of gun shy on building or starting a TIF when we know
Well,
we have
I don't-
things in order.
I don't blame you. Any other discussion? Okay, because this is a resolution directing the staff to proceed, Jamie, you're up with a roll call.
Jay Remiker,
Yes.
Bonnie Shimulunas,
Aye.
Adam Woheski,
Aye.
Kurt Andrews,
Aye.
Mark Bittner, John Cassavant,
Aye.
Kay Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
All yeses.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We also have, we're moving to number F, which is a resolution addressing the role of the Community Development Authority in Transform Two Rivers, is the name we gave that, and other housing initiatives. Long as we got Elizabeth close by, let's first of all do a motion to waive the reading and adopt the resolution, and then if you don't mind, we'll remind ourselves again what this is and how this will work. So do I have a motion to waive the reading?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mark. Let's get into, if you don't mind, it's page 99 on your packet, and it's addressing the role of the Community Development Authority, or CDA, to transform Two Rivers and other housing initiatives. Do you want to get into that a little bit, Elizabeth?
If you don't mind, I just wanted to address some of the key points of this because we were introducing at the last, and the council approved the Transform Two Rivers housing program that we discussed. And so we wanted to bring forward the role of the CDA, which is the Community Development Authority, that was approved by the council in 1989. And just remind those of you who are not quite familiar what a CDA does. And under state statute, it grants that body the authority to have the public powers to carry out exercises of blight elimination, clearance of, these are words in the statutes, by the way, blight elimination, clearance of undesirable conditions, urban renewal programs and projects that are related to those activities, and housing projects. So having said that, we wanted to carry that forward into the fact that the city has approved the extensions of TID 3, 4, and 5, setting aside funds for affordable housing initiatives. And so then tying that in together with the Transform Two Rivers initiatives, we wanted to specifically identify that the CDA would be that entity that would implement that program and other housing initiatives that we would be moving forward to continue to work with housing assistance within the city and move forward some of the goals that the council has identified with some of the activities that are identified under the state statutes that CDAs have the authority to act on. And I anticipate us moving forward as a staff to put forward some different activities for the CDA moving forward, specifically at our next meeting. So we wanted to spell these activities out that the CDA does have authority to do and be very active in, with the understanding that it cannot spend money that's not approved by the city council. So they would just be very active in implementing programs, but yet always coming back to the city council with anything that would expend dollars. So that's the purpose of this and the story behind it.
Thank you. Any other discussion regarding this or questions for Elizabeth while she's at the podium?
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes, Mark.
I understand the resolution and what you're trying to accomplish, but the exact details of the implementation of what the CDC will finally allow or approve and offer to the community, that's not yet been finalized?
Well, the Transform Two Rivers, for example, we went through that
Concept.
program and
Right.
the application that we have drafted. That was in your packet last time.
And that application, wasn't there still some discussion on exactly the requirements and how the CDC was going to adapt that?
It's the CDA.
CD, of
We
course.
won't do any health things, but we will go through the application, and we're going to kind of muddle through the first, they might be a guinea pig, but we will get that nailed down. We did make the changes recommended by this body, and as, the 20%, not the 50%, for example, for the matching. So those changes were noted, and then we will proceed.
And those changes aren't included in this?
Not in the resolution.
Okay.
No.
Okay. The resolution supports the changes that we made.
We noted the changes, I guess, last time when we spoke. This is
Okay.
just to make sure everyone
Well, that's a
understands.
yes then?
Yep. This is really what she's saying is it's making sure all of the stuff we're pushing now can be acted upon by the CDA. We can start getting going and asking people, do you want to possibly get a loan? It's a 20% you've got to match type thing, and get this thing moving so that the people can start taking advantage of the money we got sitting there. Otherwise, it's not going to go forward.
That was exactly what I wanted to be a better understanding.
Perfect. Yes,
All right,
thank you, Mark. Any other discussion?
Generally, from 30,000 feet, the intent of this was to make clear. Council approved the parameters for Transform Two Rivers. The CDA is the decision-making body operating within those parameters. So they'll be looking at, hopefully soon, applications and moving on that. We also wanted to better memorialize it for the record because council had previously blessed using that affordable housing money from TIDS 3, 4, and 5 for, lead lateral replacement or paint-up, fix-up programs. Now this is saying Transform Two Rivers is the plan on how to spend those monies because, after all, fortunately, there's been federal and state grant money now made available for lead laterals. And finally, to really use the CDA for that housing piece that we've not historically used it for, hopefully they'll be out there identifying grant opportunities, maybe initiating applications, but again, at the end of the day, not committing to spend city taxpayer money without the approval of this body.
I have one other question, Elizabeth. At what point is this going to be communicated to the public so they know they can apply for this grant opportunity?
Transform Two Rivers is on our website right now. There is a pull-down menu where it says housing assistance on our city's website. There may be some correspondence going out from our inspections department, and this information, we have a flyer now created. It will go out in that mailing, and so we'll be continuing to promote it in that manner.
Right. I'd love to just have examples of it shared with council on what exactly was done with flyers and stuff as well, if you don't mind. Thank you. Adam?
This may be a dumb question, but when we did this last time and we changed the matching dollar amount from 1 to 2, we changed it to 1 to 5 from 1 to 2. Is that something that would come again before this body because it's not technically spending city money? When we talked about the affordable housing?
I understood it to change it from 50% to 20%, and I did change it to that.
Right. No, I'm asking like a future issue like that. Would that still come before this body, or is it simply going to be spending city money coming before this body? How we oversaw that?
Right. It's been created. So, I guess if you're saying if we create another housing program, would we bring it back?
Right.
Well,
or is this going to oversight that for next time too, is what I'm wondering.
Well, that's a great question. I think when we work with the CDA, if we need to tweak it or make changes like that, it would come back here to have those kinds of changes done.
Okay.
But each application will not be coming through here. The CDA will be implementing it.
Okay. Yep.
I would think we're not rubber stamping if there's extra money and say another TID, that money is just going to fall into this and that keep building that pot. Anytime that if there's funds in there, we have to determine what we're doing with the funds outside of the excess when a TID is maturing, or we want to use those funds for something.
Right,
By
those are
statute, we
designated,
control that. So right now, we've authorized the 3 excess funds out of 3, 4, and 5 to go into this transform. It's a bucket of money, and here's the criteria in which they can grant or get it. But any other money we'd have to authorize. And if we were coming back because we didn't get enough applications, we felt we needed to modify the 1 in 5, or maybe now 1 in 10, or whatever, 10% instead of 20%, I think the CDA would have to bring that back here, or at least I'd recommend CDA
Yes,
to bring
I
it back
didn't
here.
understand the
Yep,
question.
that's
Okay.
what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
In a roundabout way, I guess. I didn't really ask it real well.
No, but I understood.
Yep.
I got it.
And I believe then the practice, to Adam's point, wouldn't extend to any additional TIDs in the future. It only covers 3, 4, and 5, as was
Right.
stated. So
Right,
new
because-
TID additions would have to be.
Yeah, they had extended their regular life, and so the statute allows you to add one more year under these circumstances for affordable housing.
Thank you. I'm excited to get going on this, to transform and get some people the opportunity to get some low interest or some money to help fix up their houses and improve their property values. So do we have a roll call vote, Jamie?
Bonnie Shimulunis,
No.
Adam Husky,
Aye.
Kurt Andrews,
Aye.
Mark Bittner, John Cassavant,
Aye.
Kay Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Jay Ritmaker.
No.
Got a 7-2.
Thank you. Let's move to number H, which is city manager designation of acting city manager. So city manager is designated chief of police Brian Kohlmeyer to serve as acting city manager in his absence for the upcoming year. We've done this in the past before with, I believe, Chief Collins back when he was here. I'm looking for actions, though, because on the agenda, there is
I
no
apologize.
recommended action.
It's by previous council resolution, it's an annual matter that the city manager is to report to the city council. So I would suggest that the council take action to note receipt of this verbal notice or this notice on the agenda. There's not a resolution or anything. It's simply to
We're
note
just
that,
voting to that.
to
we
note that you
acknowledge
are
it?
so informed. Yeah.
So am I looking for a motion to say we're so informed and a second on that and then a vote? I'm looking for some help here, Jack.
I'm sorry, Jack, this got put on the agenda because it's been there in past years. I didn't scrutinize it. It actually is a notification, so it probably should have been flagged as no action, information only. There was
Just
no
wanna make sure the
recommended
FYI
action.
is a CYA.
So, right. So with no action, the council is duly informed. It's of record.
Okay.
Okay, we accept.
Okay, so we heard, and we're publicly all saying we know it now. Thank you, and thank you, Chief Kohlmeyer, and the future to step in for City Manager Buckley should he be absent. So thank you. We'll move on to J. That was easy. Follow up on discussion at March 29th council work session regarding the possible limited use of ATVs and UTVs on city streets. I know, Mr. Buckley, you were going to check on what the next steps on that were going to be.
Right.
So we can figure out
And
how we keep moving this along.
I don't think this is ready for action tonight, but I know we had left the March work session with a promise that the DNR warden that was here would follow up as to a question. The one specific question I'm recalling is if the council, the council indicated that night an interest, first of all voted by majority that there was not an interest in generally allowing ATVs and UTVs on city streets, period. But there was some interest indicated by majority vote in looking further into the possible limited use of ATVs, UTVs for landscaping purposes on city streets. The warden that was here that night, his supervisor was doing some training and things, and through follow-up by our police department last week, on Friday of last week, he affirmed that he believed, as far as the signage language in the statute, which is all we could get out on Friday afternoon anywhere, as excerpted here, that language applies if the council was deciding to authorize ATVs and UTVs on city streets broadly or to a more narrow extent than what the statute allows. And so we've highlighted this language in either yellow or gray. I'm assuming you've got color copies of it. Couple of things. If the city were to allow ATVs or UTVs on specific streets, in other words, they'd be prohibited on some streets, Then there is a requirement you see under 2 there. If a town, village, city, or county designates specific highways under its jurisdiction as all-terrain vehicle routes, the town, city, village, or county shall do one of the following, and that is to erect a sign at each point on a highway where the ATV route begins and ends. Basically, mark the beginnings and ends of areas, mark the areas where you're not allowing them. Under the second one, and that is basically to notify ATV, UTV users. And the second one, point B, would be to notify motorists as they enter the town. If you were allowing ATVs and UTVs on all city streets, I think we left that work session with the understanding the city would have to put signs at the city limits coming in saying that ATVs, UTVs are allowed on all city streets. When we heard back from the warden and then looked at the language, you'll see there under 3, if city, village, town, or county designates all highways under its jurisdiction as ATV routes, the town, village, city, or county may, so that's permissive, may erect a sign. And similarly, if a town, village, city, or county designates all highways in its jurisdiction as ATV routes, they may erect a sign on each highway into its jurisdiction. And one of those relates more to viewing by motorists, and I think in the other 2 where it could be viewed by motorists and all ATV operators. So that's about all we've clinched since then. I think the council really needs to engage in a bigger discussion of, do you want to create a body of law specific to a fairly narrow use of ATVs and UTVs? And remember, we heard from the warden, at least, that the way the statute defines them, you can't pick out just the UTVs, which had been I think the council's hope. This is a report back, at least as to the signage, and the answer we got, we don't have an ordinance prepared. I would suggest tabling this to the next meeting as well, but I didn't just want to let it lay dormant because we did just very late last week get an answer.
Jay?
Something that just came out to me, and a committee of people reached out to me in the towns and villages around us. They have committees going. They'll be going for Mishkat tomorrow to see if they can allow the same thing. 2 Creeks have passed theirs. The town of Gibson have passed theirs. And I know they said they're going to go for the town of Three Rivers also. So I don't know if you guys want to take that under consideration, because you're going to have ATV routes all around us pretty soon. Maybe, possibly. So
Well, that's good heads up, and we could see that.
And there's also, the guy that reached out to me said there's also grants for all the signage, and they have a volunteer group that puts them all up. So you won't have any cost on that.
Adam, you had your hand up too?
Up for me.
My question was, when you said may, so we could or we could not? It was up to us if we want to put those signage up
That's
at the
our
beginning?
understanding. Because I was hearing shall when we had that work session, but as I see it here, the sign, and you may still very well want to, but the signage when you are allowing ATVs on all the streets in the city is not mandatory, it's may.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not something we would have to do. But
There's
if
still some streets, though, we can't go on, like the highway, right?
If it's over
It's over
35 miles
35.
an hour, I think,
Right.
State highways.
and
State highway, and there was county roads or something that he had mentioned as well?
I think it relates to speed limits.
And so what I'd like to do, Greg, I agree with you. I'd like to make a motion to table this. We got a new council coming on starting tomorrow. I'd love to give them the chance to up this as well. We're not going to answer it tonight, and I don't want to push something down their throat because we don't even have an addendum in front of us or a resolution in front of us. So it's good that you're investigating that. Thank you, Jay, for the updates on the surrounding communities, and we'll have a better insight as to what might be happening. Who knows? So I'm looking for a motion to table it till next time we meet.
I'll make a motion to table.
Thank you, Jay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, guys. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Greg, for following up on that. And
Thank you. Sorry we
we
didn't
look
have-
forward to seeing this, hopefully on maybe the first meeting in May with the new council, if we can get more things on
Yeah,
your
because honestly, the work session's looking pretty busy already with things we'd like to bring to you.
K, consideration of terminating or maintaining the emergency order requiring masks inside the city building. This was a discussion we had. We said we'd put it on here every time we had a council meeting, and we'd revisit it. I'm going to go ahead and make a recommendation. We got a new council again starting tomorrow. I'd hate to feel like we were making a decision here and saying, here you guys go, and maybe there one or two of them have a point of view. We want to give them an opportunity to weigh in as well. So my recommendation is to table it till the work session to talk about it.
I did ask the city attorney on this one, if the council simply wanted to take no action, it would stand, but consistent with what you directed 2 weeks ago, this, as long as it remains in effect and the county's advisory remains in effect, this will be on each regular meeting agenda. So you've got the opportunity to either take action to rescind it, or you could affirm it too, but no action would leave it stand as well.
Well, you heard my point of view. Anybody else have something they want to say?
I'd like to get rid of it. I forgot mine actually too. I hustled in here as fast as I could. It was unintentional.
I still think this is a difficult thing trying to, when do you end it? I mean, it's just, it's so up in the air.
If the council, the resolution read, I'll just leave it at that, the resolution read at this point, as long as the county health department was recommending. Now, theirs wasn't an order, but it was urging businesses and others to do it. So my suggestion would be, we don't have a health department here at the city. Defer to the people that have that responsibility, who aren't ordering at the county level either.
No, I know.
So as it was passed by the council, it would either be council takes action to rescind, or if the county mask advisory, I may not be using the right term, but what came out of the county health department right after the state Supreme Court ruling, if that goes away, this would automatically go away.
Well, I think we agreed to keep it on the docket. I'm just recommending, because we have a new council in 24 hours, to not make take action tonight. So I make a motion to table, which could be the work session, and we should discuss it then.
I'll second that.
And that is a tabling to next Monday.
Yes. I got a motion, I got a second. Any discussion? All in favor of pushing it to Monday? Aye. Thank you. And welcome new council members.
No.
Start thinking about it now and your point of view, okay?
I see his point. It makes sense.
Let's go to KL. License agreement with Klein Concessions LLC for rental of non-motorized watercraft from a location at Nashotah Beach. The motion is to authorize the city manager and the city clerk to sign the agreement on behalf of the city with any changes as approved by the city manager and the city attorney. Let's do a motion second, then we'll talk about it.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, too.
You want to talk first?
I've had a follow-up discussion with Mr. Klein, and my recommendation has changed to that of tabling, and he understands it. Unless you want to make tonight the changes I heard today that he would desire. First off, Mr. Klein did indicate in an email to me last Friday he's okay with the insurance provisions as they're in here. Some of you know that had been a concern before. He would, however, like to have permission, maybe in this form, maybe not, but he'd like to have permission to do these personal non-motorized watercraft rentals allowed also potentially at Paddlers Park and Vets Park. I don't think that would be too hard to accommodate by modifying the agreement and having exhibits with a little map like we do for Nashotah, but that was not my understanding going into last Friday or tonight's meeting. He would also like to be able to sell merchandise, whether that's volleyballs, frisbees, apparel, what have you. I suggested that that should be addressed in the license agreement if that's going to happen. Nathan did point out that under the vendors from special vehicles that we have for like the ice cream truck is always operated under. It does allow sales. I pointed out to him that any sales in city parks by our park ordinance require approval of the rec director. And I'd suggest bringing that to the council because just right now we don't have merchandise sales in city parks. And I know in the past, quite a few years ago, we had a guy selling sarongs or whatever you call those, cover-ups. And that went through the rec board and council for permission. Mr. Klein also objects to the 5% payment fee. He indicated he realizes that's a fairly minimal fee, but he had concerns about the record-keeping requirements for him and the monitoring requirements for the city. Based on that and based that I thought this license agreement addressed what the specific request was, he could not make it to the meeting tonight, but I suggested the council might want to hear directly from him as to the exact nature of his plans. And he did indicate that while he was keeping the store open tonight till 7 anyway, that he could come to the work session next week. So with that, unless you want to try to make all those changes to this agreement, which I didn't prepare to do, I would suggest tabling this to the work session.
I don't mind tabling it. That's fine. But I guess I would want to know more about what he plans to sell for merchandise. I mean, that could be very vague. Not to say he would sell something inappropriate, but I think we should have something in writing that it's within certain parameters. And we should, before we vote on that, have something on a map that shows where at Paddlers Park, where at Vets Park, just so everybody knows and understands.
Like this, like he's got
Right,
this.
kind of like we had in our packet for Neshoto Beach. But I think I don't mind selling merchandise, but I think we should know what merchandise that is.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to table this till Monday.
Thank you, Jay.
The work session next Monday.
Yeah, to the work session and invite Mr. Klein in to speak. And
Absolutely.
hopefully we have maps and layouts.
Yeah.
And I agree with Mr. Wachowski that what is the list of stuff you plan on selling?
Oh, yes.
Frisbees, volleyballs are one thing. Sarongs are another thing. So whatever it might be. Do I have a second on the tabling?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mark. Any other discussion? All in favor of tabling this to the work session next week, inviting Mr. Klein, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. Thank you. And thank you, Nathan, for at least being aggressive to get some stuff going on in our parks. That'd be a good thing. So let's move on to M, which is zoning code text amendment to add limited production and processing as conditional use in certain business districts. That seems like a mouthful. And it's really just a motion to schedule a public hearing on May 3rd regarding that. Greg, you want to elaborate?
This amendment, which now does come with a recommendation for approval from the Plan Commission from their meeting last Monday, would allow as a conditional use in the B1 and B3 business districts. Bear in mind, B1 is most of the traditional downtown. B3 is most of the outlying areas. Production activity, essentially for wholesale type sales, provided that it doesn't exceed 1,200 square feet in area and provided that there is still a retail sales component of whatever's being produced on premises. And the reason for this, of course, is our current ordinance in the B1 and B3 is pretty traditional and expects, at least on the first floors, that in those business districts, you're going to have fairly traditional retail sales and service uses. The world is changing, and we've got some businesses that have a retail presence but are doing a fair amount of wholesale. And I don't know that hurts anything. Think about at least one of our bakeries. We say bakery, retail as a permitted use. We don't talk about wholesaling. We've got a really cool cheesecake place that I think has some wholesale accounts. We were approached, myself and the community development director, by another local business already in retail, wanting to do a new product offering that would be offered at retail on site, but where that person perceives most of the market's going to be wholesale. This would accommodate that kind of use without getting it to the point where you just see a blank storefront where there's no retail offered, and someone's just producing, in the floor space there. Something we might normally say, take it to the industrial part, because that's manufacturing. I'm getting too deep into the weeds, but the draft language also says this would be a conditional use, and it would have to be shown that it wouldn't have any negative externalities, odor, noise, that kind of thing.
Can I ask a clarifying question on retail? Because there's people who produce things that sell wholesale,
Yep.
as you described. There's people who produce things that sell retail online. And there's retail storefronts.
Yeah.
So there's brick and mortar, or bricks and click, if you would. Does our ordinance allow for, say, a majority of their retail to happen through the internet? And does that violate the way we have it structured?
Our read of that as staff has been that retail sales is not so specific as to say it's in situ or at the counter. It could be online, but when it's production for wholesale distribution or primary sale through wholesale channels, then it's a production activity.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And that would run afoul of the current ordinance.
Any other questions on this? We're looking for, I guess, anything else you want to elaborate on before we make a motion?
No, other than Elizabeth will give a really good explanation of it the night of the hearing, if you set the hearing.
Make a motion to schedule a public hearing for May 3rd, 2021 at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Jay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mark. Any other discussion regarding the public hearing?
Well, couldn't we just say on the date instead of exactly 6 p.m.? I mean, just in case.
It's for the public.
Okay.
Yeah. We may not get to it by 6, but that's the earliest it could be
So
considered.
it's a public hearing on May 3rd at 6 p.m. Thank you, Jay. We got a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Let's move to number 12, Greg.
Nothing major there. As we mentioned, council reorganizational meeting tomorrow night here, 6 o'clock. The council work session next Monday, and then back to the next regular meeting 2 weeks from tonight, Monday, May 3rd.
Do we need a closed session tonight?
Yes, we do.
Okay, we'll move into closed session. The City Council reserves the right to enter in the closed session per Wisconsin Stats 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Tonight we'll be discussing a possible city assistance to economic development projects and discussing the sale or redevelopment of the city-owned Paragon property. I'm looking for a motion to go into closed.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Thank you, Adam. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, Jamie.
Mark Bittner,
Aye.
John Cassavant,
Aye.
Kay Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Jay Remiker, Bonnie Shimulunis,
Aye.
Adam Wahusky,
Aye.
Kurt Andrews.
Aye.
All
And
yeses.
if I might, I would just note,
Take a 3-minute health break, please, or 5-minute health break, and
just
then we'll
note
go.
for the record, the agenda does provide for possible action by council on reconvening and open. So just so that's out there for the record.
Okay, thank you. So on the record. Thank you. We'll take a break. Thank you all for tuning in and participating.